This is the 19th season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, AFTCO, Pro Guide Batteries, X Zone Lures, Shoreline Boat and RV Repair, Spro, Gamakatsu, Big Bite Baits, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. Dual show today. Excited for today's episode. We're going to kick things off with Brandon Card, former University of Kentucky. We'll just say it because I don't even think it exists back then. All-American in college fishing, and then made the jump to the Bassmaster Elite Series, and then has had a wild ride in 2023, testing, I'm sure, his faith, his FUD, the whole 9 yards. We'll get into that a little bit, but I also wanted to talk to Brandon. He's one of the best in the business at finding out-of-the-way hidey holes. And I got a message from Jody White of MLF yesterday. He's like, too much Demiki rig talk. We need to talk about the nitty-gritty. He's like, can we have Biffle on for like a 20-part series or something like that? Well, we just had Tommy on before. So I want to talk with Brandon Card about finding some sneaky holes. It seems like over the course of his career, he's found some weird little patterns that have paid off that have nothing to do with electronics. So we're going to talk to Brandon Card about that. And then in the second half of the show, as always, following the Bassmaster Open EQ event, Ben Milliken will join us to talk about his strong finish on Lake Eufaula in Oklahoma. I think he racked out a top 30 finish in that event, was in the top 10 after the first day, had like 10 or 15 spectator boats following him around in an open, which is pretty impressive. And then with that finish, he jumped back up into qualifying for the 2024 Bassmaster Elite Series. Let's bring Brandon Card in here. Are you prepared for dealing with all that is and the circus that is surrounding Ben Milliken on the Elite Series next year, Brandon Card?
Oh, I have no clue, man. The only thing I know about Ben is that my buddy sent me a link to a video for the hover rig or something, and I hadn't even known anything about it. I knew about tight lining and all that for years and years. We actually do that in East Tennessee. But the hover, I don't even know what it's called. Hover something rig.
Hover rig. You guys call it the Demiki rig in Tennessee, right? Because it's based off of the Demiki shad and the Demiki head. Like that is the brand name for it. That's like calling a stick bait a Senko.
Exactly. But the way that Ben was doing it, he was taking like an actual jig hook and kind of sticking it further back in the bait, and then putting a nail weight and sticking it in the head. And that was pretty cool, man. I can't wait to try that up north. Very informative. He just laid it all out and just kind of, I feel like he's very educational with his videos for sure.
And he's pretty darn good too through it. He's got through the grinders. He's caught it where he's supposed to. And like I said, he's in position to make the Bassmaster Elite Series. So, how have you been, man? I want to thank you for jumping on BTL. I know you've got some family in town, doing some things. I asked you to jump on the show. I kind of, when did I talk to you? Was it about a month ago or a little over where I called you and wanted to get you on, and then we weren't able to connect. But before we head up to the, I head up for my northern swing up north, and then you guys head up for your northern swing for the Bassmaster Elite Series. I wanted to get you on BTL to talk about probably, it would have to be the most memorable year of your life, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, obviously, family, like, getting married and then, having our first kid, that was very memorable. But as far as just health and, all that good stuff, definitely the most memorable for sure. It's interesting when you have good health, you don't think about it. You just take it for granted. But when you have like a little health scare like I did, you're just like, you kind of puts everything into perspective. You're like, holy cow, like this is crazy.
Quick recap. Before the year started, let's see if I could do this in 20 seconds. You got shingles, which I have not had, but I've had friends that had it. They said that in and of itself really sucks. And then as a result of the shingles, you got what you thought was Bell's palsy, which is where it's facial paralysis with a high likelihood chance that it'll eventually come back.
Yeah.
And there's some other stuff, fatigue, that goes along with it. But since then, you've discovered that you actually had a different syndrome, not Bell's palsy.
Yeah. And then, so one that you did leave out was the viral meningitis. So,
that doesn't sound fun either.
Actually, that was kind of the scariest because, people get really sick with meningitis. So I guess that was the most severe deal. But I actually, after the 14 days of the antivirals, I was pretty much healed of the viral meningitis. So that kind of, took care of itself with the medication that I was on. But the facial paralysis has persisted. And all this started, the first headache that I had, the viral meningitis headache, it started December 26th, the day after Christmas. And so the meningitis got better in 2 weeks. The facial paralysis persisted. I thought I had Bell's palsy. Turns out I went and saw a specialist about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, and he said that I have Ramsay-Hunt syndrome. And so Ramsay-Hunt syndrome is just kind of a more severe facial paralysis than Bell's palsy. Bell's palsy, about 85% of the patients have a full recovery. Ramsay-Hunt syndrome, about 50% of the patients have a full recovery. And so then basically the other 50% has some sort of a partial recovery.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, looking at you now, based on kind of following your journey that you've done through social media, you're definitely recovering. Like it looks like, and it sounds like you're definitely seeing some, what is it? I wouldn't say they're results. I feel like results are what you get when you like hit the gym. You're definitely seeing some improvement.
Some improvement, yes. Yeah. About a month and a half, 2 months ago, I started to get movement on the right side of my mouth again. And if you go back and watch some of the earlier posts and stuff that I did, like there was no movement over here at all. And it was all just on the left side of my face. And so, now, I'm not slurring my speech as bad. When I smile, it actually looks halfway okay. Before, when I smiled, it would pretty much make a baby cry. It was like, it was better to not smile. I was just like doing everything that I could to not smile. Mm-hmm. And so I guess the big thing now is my eyelid still isn't working. Obviously my left eyelid's blinking fine. My right eyelid still isn't blinking. And so whenever that resolves itself, that'll be a great day because it's very annoying not having an eyelid that doesn't function.
You sounded like, from what I remember, a little bit of a decision as to whether or not you were going to fish. I know that, or when you were going to fish. You had the Bassmaster Classic that was in Knoxville that was coming up. You had 2 Elite Series events before this. And kind of hindsight now, I want you to go back to February when you decided, and I think you were dealing still with some fatigue and, like you said, like running with the boat and special. Dude, you go out and you finish 7th in that first event in February after dealing with this from December 26 on. Kind of 4 months later, looking back on it, that had to be a very emotional moment for you and your family.
Yeah, it was pretty wild, man. I mean, I'll just kind of say what I think. I mean, I think it was like a God thing, just to be honest. It wasn't that I just went out there and, figured it all out and, just fished my butt off and got it done. I'm not going to take any of the credit. I just think it was just kind of, it was something bigger than me, man. I just feel like, this whole entire deal, just from when it started until now, I just feel like this is just, it's bigger than me. I feel like maybe it's, God's kind of, let this happen and allowed everything that's transpired to maybe give people hope that's, going through, health struggles of their own, or, whatever the case may be. I just feel like it's something kind of bigger than me. And it was a cool experience. It was just a wild ride, man. People kept asking me about it, and I was like, I can't explain it. Bass fishing's crazy. Sometimes when you try so hard and you think you're going to do really good in the tournament, you bomb. And then there's other times you don't even know if you're going to make it to a tournament, and you literally just show up. And that's exactly what I did. I just showed up. The first day of practice was horrible. I called my wife. I said, I don't know if I made the right decision coming down here. My eye was completely bloodshot, and then something I haven't talked about on here is also had blood clots in my arms.
Oh my gosh.
From where they had the IV. Basically, I was on an antiviral IV for about 5 or 6 days. For some reason, at the hospital that I was at, they didn't give me any blood thinners. And so I don't know if that was an oversight or if they just thought since I was younger that I would be fine. But blood clot set in on my left arm really bad. It was actually all the way from my upper bicep down to my wrist, which I didn't even know a blood clot could get that big. But it was on my left, it was bad. My right one, there was a smaller one on my right one. So I was all, kind of worried about that too. You hear about blood clots moving and all that stuff. And so now the doctors did tell me before I went down there that it was in a smaller vein, and the likelihood of the blood clot traveling in a smaller vein and, ending up in your lungs or your heart would be very, very slim. Most of the cases where you hear that is like a bigger vein, like one of the bigger veins in your leg. So yeah, it was just a lot going on. The cold air, like the cold dry air, which we had a lot of that in practice down there in Florida, and then it actually kind of started getting warmer down there at Okeechobee. But the first couple of days of practice, we had a brutal, like, cold front wind, and that's like the worst for my eye. Like if it's actually pretty warm outside and humid, I don't have to put the eye drops in my eye quite as much as I do whenever it's like kind of a cold front and super windy. And so that first day of practice, it blew like 40 mile an hour, or that might be an exaggeration, but it was 25 mile an hour pace. And my eye was just like completely red and bloodshot. And I was just like, what am I doing down here? Like, I felt terrible. It was pretty wild in practice.
It sounds like it kind of put into perspective a lot of things for you, because you're thinking about stuff like you mentioned that. I mean, as that continued through this year, you're having a great year. Statistically, you had the best start to your year that you've had since 2015. And your first 3 finishes were 17th, 19th, and 27th. You throw in a 16th in the Classic there. And then after your last 3 events, you're sitting in 28th in the Angler of the Year standings. But at a time when you should have been sucking because you're worried about your health. Like I said, it was your best start in the last 8 years of your professional career.
Yeah, I mean, it's a trip, man. It's been a wild ride, that's for sure. The first 2 events that I thought I was going to miss, when I was in the hospital, I was kind of, figuring out the recovery time of all this, and I felt pretty good about the Classic, because the Classic was, in the middle of March, and I thought, okay, well, I'll probably be good before then. But the Elite Series started the 1st of February, essentially. Maybe it was the second week of February. And I was just kind of like crunching the numbers and like the recovery process. And I was like, I really don't think I'm going to make those first 2. And, I talked to Lisa, our tournament director, and, I was like, what's the options? And she said, you can just, basically miss the first 2 and try to qualify for the Classic in the next 7. Which I mean, technically, if you absolutely kill it.
Technically, if you kill it, but then you're sitting there going, "Holy cow! I would have blown away Angler of the Year."
Yeah, so that was a complete long shot. But then the other one, which is not very good either, is to like take
Medical exemption.
a medical exemption. Yeah, and so I didn't want to sit out the whole season, and so I was like, well, if you take a medical exemption and then you come back, and she said, I think Brad Waitley did this towards the tail end of last year. You can come back and just fish, but it's non-points. You're just competing for essentially cash at that point
And glory.
Yeah, and so those are my options, and I didn't think I was going to make the first two, and it's pretty ironic that the first two have actually been my best two elite finishes of the year. the two that I thought I was going to miss.
Yeah, 7th and then 19th at Seminole.
Yeah, pretty wild.
All right. Any other health stuff, or can we move on to some fishing stuff here?
No. I mean, I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm just ready for this eyelid to get better. But
and that's just someday you'll wake up and it'll start blinking.
Well, I hope so. That's what I'm praying for. Now, like I said earlier, 50% of the people have a partial recovery, and so I'm just hoping I'm in that other 50% that has the full recovery. So we're just praying for that every day. But my blood clots are gone, so that's
okay.
Good. And so yeah, everything's trending upward for sure.
I looked it up. There's less than 1,000 cases of this thing a year.
So yeah, I think the only other Ramsey Hunt syndrome, I've met a lot of people through this that have came up to me and said, "Hey, I've had Bell's palsy. My grandma had Bell's palsy, whatever." But I've not had anybody say Ramsey Hunt syndrome. I think the only other one was Justin Bieber. I think he had Ramsey Hunt syndrome last year. And I'm not a Justin Bieber fan, but doing my research of Ramsey Hunt syndrome, his name pops up, and I was like, oh, okay. So, but I think he has actually had a full recovery. So hopefully I'll be good here in a few months.
I'm trying to look it up. I feel like there was another angler who had Bell's palsy. And I don't want to say the wrong guy, but I remember on the FLW tour a number of years ago, like, was it Vic Vadalero possibly?
Maybe. I remember something about Vic, maybe Bub Tosh too. And the only reason I know Bub Tosh is that I'm sponsored by iRod. And Matt, the owner of iRod, told me that Bub had Bell's palsy several years ago.
Hold on a second. I'm pulling it up. I'm in Bass Fan 2009.
I know Vic won a Lake Dardanelle FLW event, and maybe he was battling through something during that tournament.
Yeah. Let me look through this. There's got to be... Here it is. He did it all despite the onset of a case of Bell's palsy, a usually short-term neurological conditions that paralyzes one side of his face. He never had it before and didn't know what it was until visiting a doctor after the event.
Oh, so that was the tournament he won on Dardanelle.
Yeah, and I don't know, Bell's palsy onset during the event. So he won it with half of his face paralyzed and then went to the doctor afterwards.
That's one heck of a story right there.
Yeah. I don't know how the heck I remember. Oh, because those were the 2 years that I went to every single FLW tour event. That's how I remember that.
And then Matt Newman told me that Bub actually won a tournament when he had Bell's palsy. So there's kind of a trend here. Maybe my win's coming these next 3 events. Who knows?
Speaking of the win, I mean, you're 129 events in. We've seen you leading events before. We've seen you in the top 5 before. You do have a second place finish under your belt, but you're becoming one of those guys that is talked about as far as overdue for a win, or one of the best who hasn't won. We've seen guys like Bill Lowen kind of get that off of his shoulder. Well, I don't want to say off of his shoulders because he's won $1 million without winning an event, but it's kind of a good distinction to have because it means that you're good. But talk about that win and how at this point in your career, what you're a dozen years into your career now, you're still looking for that number one.
It's interesting, that's for sure. Like some guys come on the scene and win their first or second event, and then other guys, like you said, Bill Lowen. I mean, he's one of the best that has ever played this game.
Yeah.
Like he really he's top notch, and for him, for it to take that long for him is just very surprising. And yeah, I mean, I go out, man. There's a lot of tournaments, where you start out the event and you're like, I might have a pretty good chance at this one, and it's interesting. Some of them are like that, like some of the fork events, I felt super good about, and but then some of the other ones, like Texoma, or Texoma, the one I got second.
Mm-hmm.
That was like an absolute brutal practice. And the last couple of hours of practice, I just kind of got on like a little flipping deal, just maybe like the last 2 hours of practice. And I was just like, okay, well, at least I have something to go on. And then that just kind of evolved into, a second place finish. And I mean, I had to fish on to easily have won that tournament. Like that tournament is so crazy. I've never been on that much fish, but then not executed. I don't know if they were biting weird that week or what. I know Greg Hackney lost some big fish as well, so that kind of made me feel a little bit better. But there's so many fish that I had on, I was hooked, and they either came off or whatever the case may be that would have won the event. So it was just that was a crazy week. But yeah, it's just you never know when you're going to be in that position.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just trying to stay positive and just focus on every event. And when my time comes, then I think that's just kind of what it is. It's like if it's your time, it's
Mm-hmm.
your time.
You've done a lot of top 10 damage with a topwater plug. I think you're underrated as far as a topwater guy. I mean, everyone still thinks Zell Roland, Popar, that type of thing. But I mean, if I'm looking at this, like 10 killer, was that a topwater plug a little topwater action at 10 killer?
Yeah, that was flipping in topwater, yeah.
And then you had a Ross Barnett deal where you were chucking a topwater plug.
Yeah.
And then the Texoma deal.
Yeah.
And then any of the fork, was there some of the fork stuff on top?
No, most of
the
years. Most of that was cranking and dragging a big jig or something along those sorts. Swim bait.
Yeah. But you like that walking bait. You've turned that walking bait into a lot of money over the years.
Yeah. I really, that's kind of what I grew up doing. My dad, he is a night crawler fisherman through and through. Like that's all he likes to fish with.
Wait, like live night crawler?
Live night crawlers, but in his tackle box, these are his two lures that he uses. He uses night crawlers, and then he has two lures. He has a Rebel weed crawl. It's about that big. And it catches bluegill and bass. And then he has a Zyra puppy.
Oh, okay.
Those are literally the only two artificial baits that I saw my dad use when I was growing up. And so just watching him, walk the dog and catching a bunch of fish on that little puppy all those years, it's just, that's just what I knew as a kid, man. And like my brother and I, my brother's 2 years older, we were obsessed with topwater walking baits, since childhood. And then, when I signed on with Yozuri and saw that they had that compact, it's bigger than the puppy, but it's still a compact 2-hook, the Yozuri pencil, 3DB pencil. And I saw how well that thing casts. It casts tail first every single time, and you can just make such pinpoint casts with that bait. I just fell in love with it, man. I was putting that walking bait where I could put a frog, and of course it doesn't skip like a frog, but still, I mean, you can put it where you want to put it. And I just there for several years, it just seemed like a lot of tournaments really lined up for that bait. And
what was the name of that bait again?
Just the Yozuri 3DB pencil. It's the 100 size. We also have a 125 size now.
Okay.
But the 100 size is the one I like to fish around cover. And, that's what I was doing at Texoma. That's what I was doing at Ross Barnett, 10 killer.
I was looking it up here. I'm trying to. Oh, there it is. There's the Yozuri website. What am I looking up?
3DB pencil.
B pencil. Let's see if this pulls up. And
while you're doing that, I'm gonna have to figure out how to charge my phone. Hang on a second.
Okay. Oh, there it is, right there. Hold on, let me share the screen. That right there.
That's it.
Sweet.
Now that's the 3-hook version there.
The 2-hooked version is one that they use for the bluebacks a lot, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think Brandon Call throws it a lot for bluebacks. I'm pretty new at blueback fishing, but yeah, it's a phenomenal bait, man. I just think that compact size. It's got a 1-knocker in there, so it's loud. It's got a drawing power, and it just gets bit. It really does.
All right. Yeah, you figure out how to charge your phone. We're going to take our first break of the show, talking with Brandon Card. When we come back, I want to talk about Suzuki a little bit, because you're one of are you one of the original Elite Series Suzuki guys?
Yeah, I was the first one. I met him at the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show in 2012. And
okay, because I want to talk about that, because that seems to be, I'm seeing more and more Suzukis on the back of bass boats these days on both tours. So I kind of want to talk about how that's going. I also want to talk about your swing up north. You've caught them on the St. Lawrence River before, but as far as top 10s, you have not cracked the code of the north, so to speak. And you got 3 big events coming up, because, I mean, dude, you legit still could finish in the top 10 of the Angler of the Year here in 2023, which would be one heck of an accomplishment considering how things have been. So BTL on a Wednesday. We'll be back with Brandon Card, and then we will jump right into Ben Milliken talking about the Open. We'll be back right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Everything you need, one legendary brand. Top one on Strike King.
So I'm a big guy, a lunker, a 2-sandwich eating kind of man. And on behalf of all of those bigger, I gotta say it once and for all, it's bad enough that the fish look smaller in our hands. The last thing we should have to worry about is getting quality outdoor clothing that fits. Avco, any fish, any water.
I'm the kind of guy that never leaves the house without a pocket knife, and Gamakatsu's come out with the EDC series of knives. EDC stands for everyday carry, so whether you're on the water or off, you can always have it with you. The best thing about it to me is that assisted open feature. With this D2 blade, you've got it right here at your fingertips, so if you can't find your scissors, you need to cut a knot, you need to cut your braid, you've always got it. Make sure you check it out. Never leave home without your Gamakatsu EDC knife.
Born in Japan, using technology, innovation, and precision, Sunline produces the widest selection of fishing lines at the most technologically advanced line factory in the world. Manufactured at the strictest tolerances to produce victories at the highest levels of tournament bass fishing. From household names like Christie, Swindle, and Cruz, to young guns like Cook, Logan, New, and Welcher, they all trust Sunline to take them to the top of the leaderboard. Choose the line that will give you the strength to guarantee your confidence. Sunline.
Shoreline Boat and RV, dock rash, storm damage, collision repair, that deep scratch or gouge from trying to access that secret creek. Shoreline Boat and RV can get your prized possession back in mint condition and looking good on the water, fast. All repairs are done in-house, so they're able to get your boat or RV back to brand new, quickly. All Shoreline's work comes with a rock-solid warranty. Find out more at shorelineboatandrv.com. Kansas City, Austin, and Tulsa.
All right, welcome back, BTL, on a Wednesday, talking with Brandon Card. And, dude, that was the most bass boat angler thing that I've ever seen during the commercial break. Brandon went to plug his phone in, and he returned with a heavy-duty boat charging extension cord, which you can see in the wall plugged in behind him. And then I'm assuming your phone charger is plugged into the other end of the boat charging extension cord.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting in here in my wife's office, and there's a power strip thing here, but my cell phone charger wouldn't stretch, and I was like, "What's the quickest way that I can hook this up?" So I went out and grabbed my 100-foot extension cord, and Country Boy Can't Survive.
There you go. Before the break, I mentioned one of the longest standing relationships with Suzuki, which I remember when they hit the market, everybody was like, wait, what? There's a new one. And there'd been a couple other brands that came and go, but Suzuki really seemed to grab a share of the marketplace there. And you see a lot more of them strapped on the back of boats. Now you're a decade plus into this thing with Suzuki.
Yeah. This is my 11th year with Suzuki. Sure is.
It seems to me like they're pretty dedicated to the bass boat market now.
Yeah, they've made some really good strides. Made a nice little impact in the bass fishing world. I think that they were hoping that it would go quicker, because they've got such a market share on the saltwater side of things. That they were thinking that the bass boat world would accept Suzuki a little quicker. The thing about bass fishermen, man, is they're diehard. Either they're diehard Mercury or they're diehard Yamaha. It's hard to make an impact and change people's minds. But yeah, I mean, just the reliability and the fuel efficiency of the Suzuki. Just knowing, guys know now that, we haven't had a service crew this entire time, knock on wood, 11 years, no service crew, and, no major issues at all. And they just build one phenomenal engine. And so I think the guys that have realized that, they're the ones that are buying the Suzukis right now. Sure.
Who is it? Who you still have? Rojas, Perch, Pipkins. Is Gerald Spohr a Suzuki guy?
Gerald Spohr, Adrian Avina. Those are that's the original, I guess, Suzuki, pro fishing team, if you will. Now there's also some other guys that have put a Suzuki on their boat as well. I know James Elam.
Perch. Is Perch running one?
Yeah. Perch is part of the.
We mentioned him already.
Suzuki Pro Fishing Team for a while, yeah.
Yeah, Dean went with the all white. What are your thoughts on Dean's Suzuki setup? Have you seen it?
Yeah.
In person.
I think the white power poles, definitely it helps. It kind of brings it together. I don't think I could pull off white with my color scheme because I got so much black and blue, but. Yeah, it looks pretty cool, man.
I'm trying to find a picture of it. He just went all ice this year. So he matched the ice in his jersey with the white seats of the Blazer with the white power poles, and then he went white Suzuki.
That's pretty slick. It really is.
I can't find any pictures of it, unfortunately. Let's talk about up north, Brandon. Why is it that there are some guys who aren't even from up north just go up there and maul them every single time they're up there, and then there's other guys who never catch them? And you've had a top 5 on the St. Lawrence River before, 8 years ago now. But what are your thoughts about always, for the last 5 or 6 years, a third of the season, ending it, deciding the Angler of the Year, deciding the classic spots on predominantly northern fisheries, most often big smallmouth?
Yeah, so that top 5 that you mentioned, I actually most of the week I was catching largemouth, so that That was that one event where the smallmouth were weird, they were skinny, and the largemouth showed out. Me and Greg Hackney both got a top 10. Actually, both we got a top 5. He finished the top 5 as well, targeting largemouth. But that was, I don't think that's ever going to happen again because of just the amount of gobies that's up there. And those smallmouth, it's just crazy how fat they are. Like, you catch one, and it may be 18 inches long, and you're like, yeah, it's a 3.5 pounder. And then you put it on the scale, and it's like 4.5, 4 3/4. It's just insane. So the largemouth days are over, and I don't target them anymore. I mean, after that event, obviously, if you get a top 5 finish on the St. Lawrence targeting largemouth, you try to do it again. And I tried to do it several other times, and I did scratch out one other top 20 finish doing that. But then I had a bomb after that, and I was just like, okay, I'm done with them. But yeah, I mean, I think the reason why I struggled for so many years targeting smallmouth is that the smallmouth in East Tennessee, where I grew up, they act totally different than northern smallmouth. And I mentioned this talking to Mike Iaconelli the other day on the Ike Live show, and they're like polar opposites. Like the smallmouth down south, when it's cloudy, windy, rainy, you know, they get super aggressive. And like, that's when you catch them, you know, power fishing, you know, throwing a crankbait, throwing a spinnerbait. But then when it gets real calm and sunny, they don't hardly bite in East Tennessee. Like, if it's calm and sunny, you're going to have to like drag a Ned rig and just, you know, something on the bottom super slow. Up north, it's the exact opposite. When it's sunny and calm, they get super aggressive, and you're supposed to be throwing, you know, crankbaits, spinnerbaits, top waters, and then when it's cloudy, you're supposed to drag stuff. So it's just like the opposite of what I grew up, and it just took me a long time to just try to, you know, figure all that out. And I mean, I'm a lot better than I used to be, but I'm still, you know, learning. Every time we go up there, I learn something new with those smallmouth.
Well, you catch them up there, you're in position to make your 5th classic in a row. I don't think a lot of people realize that. There's not many people that can say so. 2020, 2021, 22, 23, and then the 2024 classic on Grand Lake.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. And your 7th classic overall.
Especially since I've already had 2 cracks at Grand Lake Classics, and didn't fare very well in either one of those. And so I'd like to have another chance. I feel like, especially now with you know, the forward-facing sonar and the brush files and all that. We saw it last year, you know, with the red crest at Grand Lake. You know, yep. I feel like I could do a lot better this go around.
Good stuff. Well, like I said, I know you have family there. I greatly appreciate you jumping on BTL. It looks like you're doing a lot better. Obviously, a long way to get back 100%, which will hopefully happen. But glad to see you're smiling. I mean, dude, you do have a legit smile now. It's not just half of one. So.
Yeah, I can actually smile and not make my little boy cry. So that's a good thing.
Oh, yeah. And then we're all on board for the blinking here soon. But man, the way you've handled it, the way you came out of the gates, you inspired, you caught those fish, had a great start and a great to the year. And then your social media with your updates and your positive attitude. I know you've probably gotten a lot of support and a lot of people have reached out, but I noticed it and wanted to get you on the show. So.
Yeah, man, I sure appreciate it, Matt. I look forward to hopping back on here soon.
All right. See you, Brandon. Good luck up north.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
All right. That was Brandon Carden. Like I said, just a crazy story. Had some headaches and woke up and half his face was paralyzed. It's crazy. Like he said, you don't realize you don't value your health. It's like, here's the way I'll say it. And we'll bring in our next guest, Ben Milliken. What's up, Ben?
What's going on, Matt? How we doing?
Good. I'll say it with this, and I want you to either confirm or agree with me or disagree, but you don't realize how much you use your little toe until you bang it, stub it, and then you're like, every time you take a step, you're like, damn, I use my little toe a lot. It's kind of like with health. You don't realize, you don't appreciate it until it's at the forefront.
Absolutely, man. I actually I had Bell's palsy 2 years ago. I think it was. I had
Really?
an ear infection and kind of something similar. I was lucky that it wasn't something super serious, but yeah, like half of my face was like I couldn't move it for like 2 or 3 weeks. It was crazy.
That's wild. And then it just got better slowly
Just
by
got
slowly.
better. Slowly got better.
Because he was saying he's got the Ramsey Hunt syndrome, which has less than 1,000 cases a year.
It's crazy.
And then he was fishing with a blood clot, and his doctor's going, well, it's in a small vein, so you have a very low percentage chance of it like traveling to your heart. And I would have been sitting there going, yeah, well, there's like 700 people on Earth that get this other thing every year, and now you're saying it's a small percentage chance on the blood clot? And then he went out and fished the best he's ever fished.
Yeah, scary stuff, man.
You ready to talk about the Opens? Thanks for jumping on. I know you're busy catching 6-pounders yesterday based on your social media stuff, but let's talk about Lake Eufaula in Oklahoma, my backyard. Let me ask you this. Are you feeling the pressure yet? Because now you're past halfway through and you are in the driver's seat, man. You are in the top 8. You are right now, if it ended today, qualified for the Bassmaster Elite Series. How's the nerves and the mental game?
Oh, yeah, I'm stressed and nervous, of course, but I've kind of been that way every tournament the whole way so far. So just kind of trying to manage it all and take it day by day. But I got to tell you, after practice at this Eufaula Open, I was about to have a damn panic attack just based on how it all went. And I just didn't feel like I was getting those couple quality bites a day that all the guys I've been talking to had been seeing. So I don't know. I kind of just had to put my head down. We'll get more into that, but yeah, I was feeling it after practice at Eufaula for sure.
Talk about what your game plan was during the practice, how you plan on attacking the lake, and then it seems like kind of just based on our little conversation or text that you've gone into a lot of the tournaments like, hey, I'm gonna catch him this event. This one was not the case.
Yeah, for sure, man. I know I listened to the other day with you and Joey talking about how you each went about breaking down the lake in practice. And I guess I was a little bit more, I was kind of in between, I guess, what you guys did. I tried to sample as much of the areas that I had heard had a population of fish as possible. I tried to stay in a little bit more of the cleaner water. I was really worried that it was going to fish extremely small, just by how many people I kept seeing in practice in those areas. So that Longtown area, the Porham area, and what's the one down there on the south end by
the Triangle? Bixby?
Not Bixby, but the south side of the lake down.
Oh yeah, that big cove on the right.
Brooken, that's what it is. That in the Triangle. So I really focused my efforts on those areas just because I had heard that's where, like, I'd seen past tournaments from there. That's where a lot of the tournaments had been won, and those areas were good. So I prefer to fish cleaner water. So I really tried to break those areas down as much as possible. Kind of did my usual day 1, day 2, try to get bites in those areas, figure out the nuances of the baits and the presentations the fish like. And cover as much water, do as much scanning as I can. And the first day I got there, I caught like 15, 16 pounds, and I was feeling pretty good about it because I was just kind of dinking around, stop in one spot, catch a 3-pounder. It's like, oh, I like to flip a worm. I'm going to go try that. Oh, there's some good trees. I'll flip those. And I'd catch like 2 2-pounders and a 3.5. I was like, okay, well, this lake's supposedly loaded with 3 to 4-pounders. I'm on track to have an average tournament. And then after day 1, I fished a little bit harder towards the end of practice than I had planned on. But after day 1, I never caught probably more than 10 pounds any day. And so that made me extremely nervous. But kind of as I got in the tournament, what I was hoping was the reason for that kind of came to fruition, which was I just wasn't slowing way down in those productive areas and spots and really understanding what type of baits I needed to put in their face and how methodical I had to be about it, which kind of seems to be the case. Every one of these opens is really dialing in these super sneaky, finessey type presentations and kind of giving the fish something new that they haven't seen in the previous 6 days of practice in the tournament. And so that really paid off for me.
22nd place finish. You had a top 10 after day one, anchored with a big fish. Now, one of the things that I thought you would struggle with on Eufaula that you didn't struggle with because you finished 22nd was there's not really schools of bass. It's not like you scan past and say, there's this school on the ledge, like you might at Eufaula in Alabama or Toledo Bend or some of these Texas lakes. It's seemed kind of spread out. Did you find that? And was that something that you were looking for schools and weren't able to find, or did you find kind of a needle in a haystack?
Yeah, I probably spent way too much time looking for groups, even if they were groups of 3 to 5 fish offshore. Spent too much time looking for them in practice. And so I think that's kind of another thing that kind of led me astray, that had made me pretty worried, was that I didn't find any of those areas. And that I'd kind of have to just fish around a lot of people and fish the same stuff the same way as they were. So yeah, that definitely made me very nervous going in. But I was lucky enough that I found a couple really key spots. And I'm kind of realizing in these opens that it's such a mental game with, you can't have 1 spot, 2 spots, 3 spots, 1, 2, 3 different patterns or baits. You literally have to have like 15 things in the back of your head and an area that you're in right there to just go and try to run, because there's going to be people on it. The fish are going to get beat up. And on top of that, obviously they're going to move and like they always do. So luckily I was able to, day one, I mean, it made the entire tournament for me and really made the entire season for me. If I do get lucky enough to qualify for the Elite Series, I had 2 catches, especially one, a 6-pounder on day one, that will be the reason that I would make it, because each of those 2 fish, especially the 6-pounder, probably jumped me up 20 plus places in the standings.
How'd that 6-pounder go down? I mean,
man, it was kind of crazy. The first day, so I caught the 4-pounder first, but the first day I had like 1 small keeper in the box after I had run like 3 or 4 of my productive areas, and it was like 10 o'clock in the morning. I fished a brush pile that had been pretty productive for me, and I could see some fish in it, whatever, and I couldn't give them a bite. And so I about picked up the trolling motor. I said, all right, let's get out of here, to tell my co-angler. And I panned over, and I saw a fish like 2 feet down, like in 8 feet of water from the surface. And I was like, all right, I'll make a cast of this really quick. And I had just like a 16th ounce shaky head with a 4-inch worm on it. And I pitched over to it, and I must have hit it in its damn mouth, because I didn't see the fish. The fish didn't move. It didn't light up, nothing. It just stayed there, and my bait went right to it and stopped going down. And I didn't feel a bite or anything. And I reel up, and it's on. And that was like a 4 1/4 or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
Totally just a random kind of
crazy bite. You said 2
bite.
foot down over 8 foot of water. So it was just under the surface.
Yep.
Just sitting, just chilling.
Yeah, just swimming around. There was a bunch of, I was fishing a brush pile that was kind of on top of a hump. It was actually like it was one of those ones that has a buoy on it, because it's like a state placed brush pile, which is funny. But yeah, there was constantly fish swimming around it. And so it made more sense the more I fished that area. And so I catch that one. I was like 4 1/4. I was like, okay, we're going to stay here for a second. And then I caught 2 more 2.5s out of that brush pile on a jerkbait over some time. I was like, okay, cool. So then I had 3 fish, and I was feeling pretty good about it. Well, I went a couple more hours without a bite. And so I rolled down to Brooken, and I had several spots in there, but I get in there and there's a ton of boats. And I had one like secondary point with some standing timber that dropped off on this real sharp breaking ledge that I had caught a 3-pounder in practice on. And I start going down it, pitching a worm, just a Texas rig 7-inch worm. And
like old school. That's about as old school as you can get.
Yeah, I like to do that. It's kind of a sneaky, forgotten technique that I catch a lot of fish on.
Ribbon tail?
Yeah, I've won several tournaments at Truman Lake actually on it, and this lake kind of set up a little bit like Truman in Missouri. So
okay,
yeah, so that's what I do there, and that's what I had going on, and that's how I caught him in practice too. But yeah, man, I got out to the very end of it, like 18 feet of water. There was one, like the most beautiful, prominent standing timber, came like 10 feet off the bottom, right on the drop off. Flip my worm in there. I didn't see a fish on or anything. And one just comes out and does a freaking lap around it. And I was like, that had to be a catfish. That was huge. I didn't feel a bite or anything either. And I lift up and my worm's swimming off, and I set the hook, and it's that 6.5 pounder. And
Wow.
my non-boater was a local, and the first time it jumped, he's like, "Oh my God, I didn't know they got that big in here." And it was great. Got it in, and man, like I said, I didn't catch anything over like 3.25 in practice, and so to catch a 4.25 and a 6.5 almost within a couple hours of each other, I was pretty shocked.
Yeah, that's goofy. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to dive into surviving day 2, because if you have 17 on day 1, you don't back it up on day 2, you still finish way down in the field. And then I also want to kind of go over the eclectic mix of baits that you have used to put yourself in contention to the Elite Series with 4 left, because when you add a Texas rigged 7-inch ribbon tail worm, you got stuff all over the board. You're not just a one-trick pony.
Oh, it gets even better.
Okay, well, we'll save it till after the break. We're talking Ben Milliken, the Bassmaster Open EQ on Lake Eufaula. And I'm looking forward to the end of these when we get all 9 of these in the books and go back and I can mix and match the best from all 9 of them. I think that's going to be a badass compilation show.
I like it.
BTL on a Wednesday, June 21st. We will be back right after this.
The great thing about the new Sensation soft plastics from Big Bite Baits, heavily scented, super soft, buoyant, comes in 7 great new shapes. I've got a couple of them of my signature series, the cliffhanger worm and the ramtail craw. Great for a flipping jig, football jig, swim jig, all that. Several other great shapes. Really excited about it. We've worked over the last year, catches fish all over the country, and I think it's going to catch fish for people everywhere you try it. The Spro Little John crankbait has been around for almost 15 years, and it is one of my go-to crankbaits whenever I need a fish in the boat, so you can never have enough new colors. That's why Spro's coming out with a handful of new colors, including Pearl Shad, which has this bleached out white look, but it's got this pearlescent, really pretty. We've got Copper Shad, which looks amazing in the water. It's got that purple flake on the back, really pops in the water. And then if you want some real pop, we've got Sparkle Shad, nothing but sparkles all over this thing. And then last but not least, we've got the matte Sexy Shad, just a really different looking color for a crankbait. So you want to give them a little different look, that matte Sexy Shad is definitely the one to go with. All these colors are available in the original Little John and the MD.
Are you looking to install your own fishing electronics? The solution is the Bass Tank Power Harness. It takes the guesswork out of installation. No more voltage issues or interference. Designed by an engineer so that you can get professional results right there in your own garage. Installation done right with the help of the Bass Tank Power Harness. You can feel confident knowing that your installation was done right. The Bass Tank Power Harness. Give us a call or order yours today at thebasstank.com.
Get the best patterns backed by tournament data. Start by finding the best 10% of your lake. Know exactly what to look for and what to throw. After that, just put them in the boat. Try the Deep Dive app today.
Look at that beast right there.
All right, welcome back, BTL. On a Wednesday, I keep forgetting what day of the week it is. This week has absolutely flown by, and then I think we've got time at home, but then we have like a week, and then it's 4th of July weekend, and then it's ICAST, and then it's the St. Lawrence River, and the year's flown by. Does it seem like it's flown by for you already? Like you spent 6 months getting used to it and answering questions about what it would be like, and then it's just dunk, 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 dunk.
Yeah, definitely. The rest of it, I think, is going to be all at once, kind of really quick, because we have a pretty quick turnaround after St. Lawrence, and then we have the first back-to-back of the year, and then everyone's going to be looking forward to that last one at Florida.
And then, you're going to be very busy too, especially with life occurrences going on in the next couple months.
That's right. Yeah, man. We're expecting our baby here anytime now. Hopefully
okay,
not.
I didn't want to say that. I didn't know.
Okay.
I was hoping. I didn't know if that was public info.
Oh yeah, it's somewhat public, but
okay.
Yeah, Becky's gonna get induced Monday if she hasn't had it yet. So we're at least it didn't happen in Eufaula. So
yeah, I did run that commercial for the Bass Tank. I do want to mention I'm really excited about this. I called Scott Palmer from the Bass Tank last night at like 9, and I was like, dude, here's what we're doing. I have him booked next Tuesday, which would be June 27th. And we are going to be live on the water from a local lake in Oklahoma. I'm going to have my Bass Cat out there with the Lowrance and the Garmin on it. He's going to have his Bass Cat out there with the all Garmins on it. We are going to do a live on location BTL answering all of your electronics, live scope questions, mapping questions, setup questions, a 2-hour extravaganza. We'll be jumping back and forth between the boats. So if you have a question about your unit, if you have a question about live scope, if you have a question about mapping, about any of those things, you'll be able to ask the mad scientist that, and then watch as he gets in the boat and shows you exactly how it is supposed to look, the buttons you're supposed to hit. I'm excited about doing that. And it's hopefully it's just kind of the next step, the next evolution in some of the live stuff that I'm doing with BTL. So, all right, before the break, Ben, I wanted to talk about day two, the 9 pounds. The grinding out days that don't look good on paper, but when you look back over the 19, 20, 21 days that you fish over the season are the ones that really make the difference. You had to be happy to come in with 9 pounds on day 2, even though it was half as much as you had on day 1.
Yeah, definitely. Once again, just didn't have a good practice. So getting a lot of those 2-pound bites on that second day was huge. And then, like I was saying, you have to have so many different backup plans in these opens, and that's kind of what I had to fall back on. There was people, I think there was a guy that kind of saw me catch that big one on that drop off in Brooklyn, because he was there every time I would go back, which was awesome. But just kind of the way it goes.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't Matt, I swear.
My co-angler on day 2 or day 1 that morning that we stopped by.
Yeah.
He it was his first time ever fishing a tournament, and I went over and I talked to you. And at like noon, he hadn't said anything, and he's like, "Man, my wife told me not to bring this up, but like I thought you and Milliken kind of got into it. I was really surprised to see you talking to him this morning." I said, "No, we worked that out."
That's funny. That's awesome.
Anyway, continue with it.
Oh, that's great. No, but I mean, I fished. I went back to that brush pile I had in the triangle. Didn't catch anything on it. They weren't really there. It was cloudier. I started on the little community hole rock wall there at launch, way out to the end of it, because I had caught some fish there in practice one day, and I caught a small keeper. Went to the triangle, didn't catch anything in the brush, tried another spot, didn't catch anything in there. And then I kind of saw the wind was blowing on some riprap really nice. And it was cloudy, and it just kind of felt right to stop and fish this road where I had caught some fish. And I pulled up and I caught 2 keepers back to back, and I lost another one. And so that sucked. And then I made a total mental lapse, and I was scoping around just trying to pick up an extra fish there before I moved on. And they weren't boat shy, which was crazy at that lake. It's like they were tough, super tough to catch, but they weren't boat shy. I was pitching like a 3-inch Ned, or I guess I'd bit it down to like 2 inches. And my shaky worm too. And I was pitching like 20 feet from the boat, scoping them on the riprap in like 2 feet of water, and they would still bite. And the one picked it up, and it was like a 2.5 pounder, really solid fish. And I had them caught, and I just had a mental lapse and tried to boat flip it. And as it came out of the water, broke my line, and so stupid. But, and I busted off 2 more on the first day too, that were 3+ pounders that I also, those were just kind of leaning on them a little bit after one was after I'd been fishing docks with my 8-pound shaky head. The other one was on the other side of a limb in a brush pile, and it wasn't like I jacked them. I pulled and they pulled at the same time, and it happened. So I wasn't too worried about it, but definitely didn't fish very clean. So anyways, went down the lake, and man, I drove all over the planet that day. I went to after that, I drove to Brooklyn. I drove all the way up to past the bridge in Porham, fished the Corey thing or whatever that is. Yeah, about 7,000
That
people.
lays out weird, doesn't it?
That's interesting, huh? It's at least accurate on the map shit, but oh my God. It's, interesting. Fished some docks up there, nothing. Went back to Brooklyn, nothing. But I had a point down by the dam that had a brush pile on it. It had a bunch of spotted bass on it. First cast in there, I caught a keeper largemouth. So that was huge to get my 4th one. And then caught a bunch of shorts. And then this point that I caught a 3-pounder on in the chute there, they call it, where it's like a pinch point. There's a ton of current was rolling through there. I fished a bunch of baits through a brush pile, and I saw some fish, and I threw a big shaky worm, a big plum shaky worm in it, and one crushed it, and that was a 2.5 pounder, and that was my 5th keeper, and that's it. That's the end of the story. That's all she wrote. That's all the keepers. Wow. I drove back to the triangle. I fished the riprap again. I fished the release fish at the ramp. That's it. 5 keepers, 9 pounds. That's all of them. Caught them in all different areas. Besides the 2 I caught right there in the riprap on the road on jerkbait. That's it.
Have you been surprised at the 4 to 15 boats that have been following you around the last couple derbies that show up? And I mean, we typically don't see that at opens.
Yeah, it's been awesome, man. The Classic's going to be really nuts. I've heard from like 100 people that are planning to follow me, let alone the people I haven't heard from. So it's been great. It definitely makes me stick out a little bit. So that can be difficult at times, but I mean, it is what it is. I love the sport.
Okay. Can we run through all the baits that you've caught wade fish in the open so far?
Sure.
All right. Let's start out with Eufaula. Let's start out with Eufaula, Alabama, Lake Eufaula, Alabama, to kick things off. 5th place finish. Because I think this is going to be a nutty list of baits. I
caught them on like 3 different deep crankbaits there. Does that count as one?
Deep plug.
Deep crankbait, swing head, Carolina rig, flick shake.
1 second.
Tube.
This is all fish that you weighed in?
Yeah. Hair jig. That's probably it for there.
Deep crank, swing head, Carolina rig, tube, and hair jig?
Yep.
Did I miss anything there?
Nope. That's it.
Okay. Toledo bend.
Carolina rig.
Okay.
Big glide. There. Soft swimmer.
Okay.
I think that was it there.
Okay. Bugs Island.
Yeah, flipping like a brush hog.
So flip.
D shot. Drop shot. Weedless soft swim bait. Buzz bait.
Oh, you caught one on a buzz bait there.
Oh, yeah. I was catching a bunch in practice until everyone caught them all.
Okay. Buzzbait. Anything else for bugs?
Probably, but I tried to erase that from my memory. But that's it, I think.
Oh, no, you got to remember, dude, that was a 62nd place finish. That was a good finish. I wouldn't remember a single day on the water this year if I did that. Wheeler.
Yeah, shallow crankbait was most of it. We already said swing head, already said drop shot, already said... shaky head. We're going to get to that too with this one. What else did I catch him on? I caught one on a popper there.
Oh.
In a tree. And that might be it. I think that's it. I caught him on a flick shake mostly. The whole second day, I caught all my keepers on a flick shake. But we already have that. Yep.
Okay, and then Eufaula, Oklahoma. We're talking.
Oh, and a finesse jig too. I caught him on finesse jig if that helps. Yeah, and then Eufaula.
We had Ned.
Yeah, weedless Ned, shaky head again, jerk bait.
Oh, jerk bait.
Yeah.
7-inch ribbon tail.
7-inch worm. Yep. I think that might be all that's different.
Holy cow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. We're 5 tournaments in. You've weighed in keepers on 19 different baits. Deep crank, swing head, Carolina rig, tube, hair jig, big glide, soft swimmer, flipping a beaver style bait, drop shot, a weedless swim bait, a buzz bait, shallow crank bait, a shaky head, a popper, a flick shake, a finesse jig, a Ned rig, a jerk bait, and a 7-inch worm.
You got it. That's it.
Yeah,
you go. I've almost caught. You start doing the numbers on that. I've caught 10 on this one, 15 at Toledo, 10 at Bugs, 10 at Wheeler, 10 at Eufaula in Alabama. So I've almost not caught multiple fish on one of those presentations. When you start adding up how many bass I've weighed in.
Yeah. So wait, let me do that again. So you had 15
So 10,
15, and then you've got a limit every day, right?
I think so. Yeah.
10, 10, 10. So 30. So you've caught 60 bass.
So
And
four tournaments. So 40. Yes.
5 tournaments.
55 total bass I've weighed in.
55, 15.
Yeah. 5 at 15 at Toledo, and then 10 at the other 4.
No, but you also weighed in 15 at Eufaula.
No, it was only 2 days.
Oh, one day was canceled.
Yep.
Because of the wind. I remember that. So yeah,
Yes, sir.
55 bass, 19 different offerings.
There you go.
So super basic math here would be, I love these numbers.
2.3-ish.
Yeah. 2.8. 2.8.
2.8, okay.
Yeah, 2.8 fish per lure.
There we go.
That's impressive. And you're going to add some up north, probably.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll catch one. I mean, maybe
Well,
like
drop
a Carolina
shot.
rig and a drop shot. Yeah,
Maybe
so,
a spy bait. A spy bait.
A spy bait I could
Maybe
add
a
for
spinner
sure.
bait. You've
Maybe
not
a
caught
spinner
one
bait.
spinner bait fish.
I don't think I made a cast with one, honestly.
Really?
Yep. Oh, no, I did it. Oh, no, I didn't at bugs. I should have probably, but I did not.
No frogfish.
Nope.
Yeah, you might add a spinner bait. You already have the jerk bait in there. A spy bait. And you already have a tube in there. You already have hair in there. You already have a drop shot. You already have a Ned. I mean, that's really pretty much. If you catch it on any of those anything other than that up there, that time of year, you're doing some really weird stuff.
Yeah, unless I'm like sight fishing something funky, but
I don't think we'll be doing that by this time, unless it's a cruiser.
Yeah, we'll see. Or a clash. I probably throw a clash a little bit up there too. Oh, I caught him on a clash at Toledo too. I weighed one.
What would that? Yeah, but what would that fall under?
Crank down. Heart.
Okay.
Crank. We'll call it one.
Crank
more.
glide.
Crank down glide with a lip in.
Okay, so 20. There's 20. There's an even 20.
Boom.
20 baits for 55 bass. That's wild. So I did a pie chart a couple years. I do it every year, but it just literally breaks down every single bait that I catch my fish on. And Johnny Schultz from Fish the Moment is big in this because he wants to say, hey, is our perception different than what our reality is? Are we thinking, hey, I catch all these big fish on a swim bait, but when you actually do the numbers, in his case, he catches them on a jig. And then he also monitors the time that he spends throwing it because he's like, well, if you throw a drop shot 95% of the time, you're going to be like, I catch all my big fish on a drop. Well, that's the only thing you're throwing. But let's say you throw a drop shot 90% of the time, but it's only accounting for 20% of your big fish. And you throw another bait 10% of your time and it's accounting for 80. So now the numbers are skewed. So there's the whole thing that he's trying to get into as far as maximizing your efficiency with the big fish baits based on actual stats, not on perception.
Yeah, that's great to do. I like that he does that a lot. For me, I think it's different. I'm not trying to sound arrogant or anything, but yeah. I feel very versatile, and that's so important to me is to stay versatile. Like, I don't know if there is the days anymore where you can be a Greg Hackney, a Jason Christie, and just fish the whole year. Not in the opens anyways. I mean, you can, once you're on the Elite Series and you can really not to say that Hackney and Christie aren't phenomenal with the spinning rod these days too, but everyone knows them as, flippers, power fishermen, shallow. You can do that and dominate in 2 or 3 events a year. But I mean, you can't do that in the opens. You will get your teeth kicked in and you just don't have a chance if you're only throwing even a couple different techniques. I don't think you can be competitive in the opens.
See, I find it interesting because this is the year that I have fished the most versatile out of the 5 years that I fished at this level. It is by far the worst year that I've ever had. The last 4 years when I've glued 3 things in my hands and I've been very close to making it. This year, I feel like I've done a lot more versatile things. And yeah, I mean, it worked at bugs, but as a whole, I freaking sucked. And I'm like, man, maybe I need. And so, like at Eufaula, I was like, dude, I am not going to do the drop shot thing. I'm not going to do the net thing. I am going to fish muddy water. I'm going to power fish. I got my butt kicked by 8 of the top 10 guys who were dinking and dunking around. They're texting me going, you got to be loving this. And I'm like, what are you talking about? No, it's actually pretty tough. And they're like, how are you not throwing a freaking purple worm down by the dam? And I'm like, because I'm trying to diversify. But I understand what you're saying. You're making the most out of every bite. You're picking one off here, one off there, because with this field, with 5 practice days and with the information at hand, there aren't dumb schools that exist.
No, not anymore, man. And that's the biggest thing for me, is just trying to find the caliber of fish to get a good points finish, or obviously, win. That's the most important thing. And then I will figure out how to catch them. I have confidence in 40, 50 different baits and techniques that I can catch them. But the hardest thing is finding them, and then finding places that are going to hold up and that aren't going to have 50 boats on them and all that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was cool hearing you talk to Joey about all that. And I'm kind of kicking myself, because I saw him fish that hump down there by the dam, and I scanned that group of freaking white bass, and I just flat out missed it. Interesting that he caught him that way, because that's kind of a way that we see some tournaments get won down here in Texas at times, that there are fish eating big bass, eating barfish, white bass, stuff like that. So props to him, man.
A couple more questions and I'll let you go. We'll wrap the show up today. Like I said, big shout out to Brandon Card for jumping on, and then Ben for you for jumping on and doing the recap. Halfway through the year now, 4 events left. Biggest surprise for you about the entire Open experience to this point?
Just how well everyone catches them, I guess, is the most surprising thing. I think I've had like several days that I've maximized and caught them good, that if I was fishing like a 50 boat tournament in the Midwest, like a local one, I would have won. When like I was like in 10th place or 20th place in the Opens. People just catch them, they find them. And I knew I was going to have to, like I said, have 15 different options, backup plans. And I guess I really had to have that every single tournament, is just places to go when stuff shuts down or doesn't work out or there's people on it.
Good stuff. Anything else? What do we have coming out? Timeline for?
Yeah, we already got the first video practice is out. Second one should be soon. And then I think next week we'll have the tournament videos. You can watch me catch a big one on a purple worm.
Has your subscriber base, your fans, your viewers really taken to the tournament series? I know that's a dicey proposition for the YouTube guys who dive into the tournament world. Some of it, we've seen it not work for some of them as far as the views, the interest. It seems like your fan base has come right along with you and actually increased throughout the tournaments.
Yeah, I think people really like it. It's been a cool story to follow along. I think if I was, finishing 187th and catching 2 fish at a tournament, that probably wouldn't be too entertaining to follow along if I was way out of it. But luckily we've been able to put it together, and man, we got a long ways to go. We have 4 very interesting tournaments. I was talking to JT Tompkins in practice. He's a great kid, by the way. He's got such a good attitude, and love that dude. But he spent a lot of time on the St. Lawrence River, and he was talking about how he feels like that's going to separate people and decide a lot more things in points than even somewhere like Watts or the Harris chain, because I mean, you have a terrible day and catch 15 pounds in the St. Lawrence River. That's a lot different than if you catch 6 pounds at Watts Bar instead of 10 pounds or whatever, So yeah, it's going to be a scary, interesting tournament up there.
And they've caught them way better than I thought they would. I mean, you're in 8th. We know what your season has been like. You're only 20 points in, and you're 100 points out of first, basically, with John Garrett. I mean, if you'd given me those numbers in average, I'd have thought that'd have been top 3 for sure. But there's a core group of guys that just refuse to suck this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely got a lot more people right behind me that are a lot closer than I do people that are in front of me that I'm close to. So, yeah, it's every day it's going to change. That's for sure. Over the next 8 days.
All right. Well, enjoy the next week. Like I said, I'm sure you got a bunch on your mind, and a lot of memorable moments coming up in the next few days.
Yep. Thanks for having me on, Matt. Well,
thanks for jumping on, Ben. Appreciate it.
Yep. See you.
All right. See you. That was Ben Milliken, 8th place currently in the Bassmaster Open EQs. I think that's about all we got for the day to day. Like I said, I'm excited about next Tuesday. We got a big week next week. Next Monday, Greg Bohannon
is on the show. He's fishing all of the open EQs. Most of you know him as the Pringles guy, longtime Pringles sponsored angler. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the correlation between high level athletics and competitive bass fishing. Like I said, Tuesday, Scott Palmer from the Bass Tank will have both of our Bass Cats on the water live. If you're not able to watch that show live, by the way, at 8:30, we're going to do it at 8:30 a.m. We'll probably go for an hour and a half. Get your questions in. You can email me, matt@basszone.com, if you have any questions regarding Garmin, Lowrance, even the Humminbird. They sell all three of those things. But we will have Garmin's and Lowrance's on the water doing a live show from Central Oklahoma. And then Wednesday, I'm going to have to call Jeffries, because here's the deal. I leave because I have to be up at Pro Bass Camp like the 1st or 2nd of July that starts. I'm gone for like a month. I'm trying to film shows, and Jeffries called and he's like, hey, dude, let's go striper fishing at Texoma, which last time we went striper fishing at Texoma is probably one of the top 5 days I've ever had on the water. We're literally like giggling with excitement as 10 to 15, 20 pound striper smashed. Spro had just come out with that new walking topwater bait, and we're smashing him on it. So Mark has kept his ear to the ground to see when the striper starts schooling at Texoma, and we're supposed to go Wednesday, but I think I might have to cancel on him because I'm supposed to film a bunch of shows on Wednesday. But we have Cliff Perch next Wednesday. Cliff, the creator of a bunch of smallmouth baits up north that I'll be using at Oneida for Kirk Dove's Pro Bass Camp at the St. Lawrence River for the 6th Bassmaster Open of the season. So we're going to get Cliff Perch on from Arizona to talk about the year that he's having and some of his bait designs. And then we're on the road for a month, and it's the 4th of July. So it's crazy how fast time has flown. But big shout out to Brandon Card, wishing him a speedy and full recovery. Also, thoughts with Ben Milliken and his family over the next week as he has another kid and then heads to the great north. Also, ICAST coming up around the corner. Thumbs up, likes, reviews, shares, comments. If you like some of the stuff, if you bought, if you're aware of stuff from sponsors of the show, that is how I'm able to bring content every single day to you guys. So those letters, those emails that say, hey, heard about you guys on BTL. Thanks for the support. Purchase this because we saw this. Like, that stuff makes a massive difference and allows more content, more creative content, more thinking outside the box. I know there's a number of BTL viewers that have done that, and literally I get comments and messages from the people in the companies that are like, hey, our sponsorship is making a difference. Thank you. So thank you guys also. All right, tomorrow, Thursday, day 4, Frank Scalish. We'll see everybody then. Later.